Welcome everybody to our channel. Today we should discuss the most important topic on economics, that is law of demand. So in order to get a better understanding on law of demand, you must watch our previous videos on demand. So let's start our today's topic, law of demand. Law of demand means the law that states inverse relationship between the own price of a commodity and its quantity demanded by keeping other factors constant is called law of demand. That means or other factors which are responsible for influencing demand of a consumer should remain fixed or unchanged. That means the price of the related goods, income of the consumer, taste, preference, likings of the consumers, or size of the population, or expectation of the futures and the season should remain fixed or unchanged. In this situation, the quantity demanded of a particular commodity increases with the decrease in price. That means when price decreases, the quantity demand of a particular commodity increases. Similarly, when price of a commodity increases, the quantity demand for that commodity decreases. That means there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded that indicates that when price of a particular commodity increases, the quantity demand of that commodity decreases, and when price decreases, quantity demand of that commodity increases. So there is a inverse relationship exists between price and quantity demand of a commodity where all other factors remaining constant. That means the law based upon certain assumptions. That means the law only operates in the particular situation, or the law should work when all these conditions should be satisfied. That means there is no change in season, no change in size of population, no change in taste, preference or likings of the consumer, no change in income of the consumer, no change in price of related goods. Generally, related goods indicates two types of goods. That means it may be a substitute or it may be a complementary. So substitute goods means the goods that can be used in place of another goods like tea and coffee. That means we may serve our guest tea or we may serve coffee. That means if we serve coffee, we should not serve tea, but in case of complementary goods, that means one goods or the goods that cannot be used without the another goods. That means if we use the car, that means we must use the petrols. So here petrol and car are complementary goods, but in case of tea and coffee these are the substitute goods. Again come to our assumptions. Then there is no change in future expectations. That means all these things, that is season, size of population, likings, preference or choice of the consumers, income of the consumers, price of the related goods, or there is no change in the future expectations of the consumers, then our law of demand operates. That means other things remaining constant, the quantity demanded of a commodity increases with decrease in price and quantity demanded decreases with increase in price. Similarly, if we present our law of demand in a schedule form, that is price and quantity demanded. Take when the price is 10, the quantity demanded of a commodity, suppose 100 units. But when price decreases to 8, the quantity demanded increases to 120 units. Again, further decrease in price, that means if the price decreases to 6, then quantity demanded may further increase to 150 units, and when price increases, the quantity demand decreases. So if we present the relationship between price and quantity demanded, this will, but it will indicate a inverse relationship between our price and quantity demanded. Similarly, we can present the schedule by using a graph. Let's take two axes, that is OX axis and OY axis. OX axis indicates quantity demanded and OY axis presents price. So when price is 10, the quantity demand is 100 units. So our point should be here. When the price eight, then quantity demanded is 120 units. So the point should be here. And when the price is 6, then quantity demanded further increases to 150. So by joining all these points, we should get our demand curve that indicates the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded when other things remaining constant. So our demand curve sloping downward from left to right. So now come to the regions of our law of demand. So the various regions of our law of demand are, so our regions of law of demand are law of diminishing, marginal utility, then second region is income effect or income of the consumer. Then our third region is substitution effect. Then our fourth region is size of consumer. Then our fifth region is different uses of commodity. So law of diminishing marginal utility, that means the satisfaction capacity of a commodity decreases when we are using more and more of the particular commodity or of a particular commodity. That means when we are using more and more of a particular commodity, then the satisfaction capacity of that commodity decreases. So a consumer likes to demand more commodity when the price decreases, because as it gets a less satisfaction capacity or less utility from additional commodity, so when price decreases, it may demand for the additional commodity, but when price increases, it should not demand more commodity. Second one is our income effect. Generally, it is divided into two types. One is our money income and second one is real income. Here, real income means the purchasing power of a consumer or the price of the goods or the services is our real income, whereas money income is expressed in terms of rupees, whereas real income is expressed in terms of goods and services. When the price of a commodity decreases, then the real income or the purchasing power of a consumer increases. So it likes to demand more and more commodity. Whereas when the price of a commodity increases, the real income of a consumer decreases. So it likes to demand less and less commodity. Similarly, in case of substitution effect, that means when we can use a commodity in place of another, that means when the price of a commodity or when a price of a particular commodity increases, we may not demand that commodity, and at the same time we should demand another commodity which is a actual substitute of that commodity. That means in case of tea and coffee, when the price of the tea increases, we may demand more coffee. At the same time, the demand of the tea decreases, and when the price of the tea decreases, we may demand more and more tea. Similarly, in case of size of the consumer, that refers to the joining of new consumer. That means when a price of a particular commodity decreases, some new consumers may come to demand that particular commodity, which commodity they may not be able to consume or demand when there is a more price. So the increase in the size of consumer also leads to increase in the demand of a particular commodity when there is decrease in the price, or when the price increases, the existing consumers may shift their likings or choice to another commodity, so the demand for the commodity decreases. Similarly, the commodity having different uses, that means we may use the milk for the purpose of drinking, or we may use the milk for making curds, for the paneers, or so many other purposes. So when the price of the milk increases, we may demand the milk only for the drinking purpose. But when the price of the milk decreases, we may demand milk for the additional use or for the different use. That means we may demand the milk for the making curds, for making paneers, or for making ghee. All such purposes we may demand the milk. So the different uses of a commodity also responsible for the operation of the law of demand. That means when the price of the commodity decreases, the demand for the commodity increases due to the law of diminishing marginal utility, due to the income effect, due to the substitution effect, due to the size of the consumer, or the different uses of the commodity, or the different uses of the goods. So now come to the various exceptions to our law of demand. That means where the law of demand may not operate. So the different exceptions of law of demand are Giffen's goods, Veblen's goods, then third exception is change in income, change in price of related goods, then increase in population, the next speculation, then our next exception to the law of demand is fear of shortage, then next limitation is ignorance, then next limitation of law of demand is essential goods, or next limitation is our change in likings, or the next exception is likings, choice or preference of consumer. Then next exception is fashion. Generally, in this situation, the law of demand does not operate. That means the price of the commodity does not affect on the quantity demand of that commodity. That is, in case of Giffen's goods, or which is otherwise known as Giffen's paradox. That means in case of inferior goods, the change in price may not affect the demand of that type of commodity, like bajra. In case of bajra, which is a very inferior goods or inferior quality goods, that means the change in the price does not affect the demand of the bajra or the such quality or such inferior quality goods may not be affected due to the increase or decrease in the price. Similarly, in case of valence goods, which is otherwise known as status symbol or our prestigious goods, that means the use of such goods gives a status to the consumers. So the consumers like to use such type of goods whatever may be the price of that commodity. That means when the price increases, people likes to purchase such type of goods because such goods gives them a status. So the increase in price does not affect the demand of that commodity. So in this situation, or in case of valence goods, the law of demand also does not operate. Similarly, in case of change in income, when the income of the consumer changes, so whatever may be the price, it does not affect the demand of the consumer. That means the price may remain fixed, but the income of the consumer decreases. So the consumer may not now is unable to demand that commodity due to the decrease in the income of the consumer. Similarly, when the price of the commodity increases, but the income of the consumer also increases, at that time the increase in price may not affect the quantity demand of that commodity. Then come to our next exception is change in the price of related goods. That means when the price of the related goods changes, the other goods may be demanded due to whatever may be the price. That means when the price of a commodity increases, but the demand of another commodity or another related commodity increases, though there is no change in that the price of that commodity. Similarly, in case of increase in population, when the population increases or there is a growth in the population, whatever may be the price, or the price may increase or decrease, but when the price increases, the quantity demanded also increases due to the change in or due to the growth in the population. So in that case, the increase in the price may not affect the quantity demand of that commodity. Similarly, in case of speculation, or when there is any expectation of the consumer arises, when the consumer expects that the price of a commodity is going to increase in the near future, he may demand more and more commodity in the present situation, though there is no change in the price. That means the price remain fixed, due to the future expectation of increase or hike in the price, so the consumer may demand more commodity at the same price. So here also the law of demand does not operate. Then come to our next exception, that is fear of shortage. Sometimes they feel that they may not be able to get certain commodity in the near future. They like to demand more and more commodity at the higher price. Similarly, in case of ignorance, or it is the another point of our exception of law of demand, that indicates that the ignorance of the consumer, or there is a belief that the commodity having higher price is better than the commodity bearing lower price. So such feelings of the consumers encourages to purchase more and more commodity having the higher price. So there also the law of demand does not operate due to the ignorance of the consumers or the mindset of the consumers. Then come to our next point, that is in case of essential goods. That means the commodity which are very much essential for a consumer for its existence. That means in case of rice or in case of wheat, that means the people or the consumer should demand rice and wheat, whatever may be the price of the commodity. That means when there is higher price, the consumer will demand the same quantity of demand, or when there is a lower price, the consumer also demands same quantity of the commodity. That means the law of demand also does not operate in case of our essential goods. Similarly, the next point is likings, choice or preference of the consumers. When a consumer likes a particular commodity, or there is a choice of the consumer or the preference of the consumer, so the consumer should demand the commodity according to the likings or choice or its preference. That means the price of that commodity may not affect the quantity demanded. Whatever may be the price, the consumer should like to demand that commodity according to its preference, likings or the choice. Then come to the last but not the least exception of the law of demand, that is the fashion. Some people or some consumers may like to present, or due to the fashion they may be demand a particular commodity at a higher price. So the law of demand does not operate in case of our fashion, because the people should demand the commodity or such commodity at the higher price. So these are all about our law of demand and the reasons of the law of demand and exceptions to the law of demand. So watch this video repeatedly and share it with all your friends to enhance your knowledge regarding law of demand.